I just got a new role. How do I build credibility on this new role? Well, stick around. I'm going to be sharing some nuggets, tips, and information based on my experience, what has inspired me, and hopefully what can inspire you based on my experience working as an independent consultant with different companies. Hi there, it's Analyticboy of analyticboy.com. Instagram handle is @theanalyticboy. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the notification button so whenever I post a new video, you get a notification. Today I'm going to be sharing how I've managed to cycle between different companies as an independent consultant, and how I've built credibility over the years within a very short time frame. So the video is really inspired by my stints in different companies working on contracts and how I was able to build credibility within the first 1 to 3 months. It's not easy. It's been a journey. I didn't start out knowing everything, but with subsequent roles and understanding how to quickly ramp up, I've learned a couple of things that have been repeatable, have contributed to me being successful in these different roles, and I want to share that with you. Taking on a new role could be challenging, and especially transitioning into a new role is actually one of probably the most critical times of anyone's life, entering into a new role where it's either things are new, the people are new, the processes are new, everything's new. And try to establish credibility is always something that's big for most people. Typically your transition actually starts from the moment you know that you're being considered for the role. And that's the way I used to look at it. From the moment I've started interviewing and I'm kind of progressing through the interview stages until the final point, I've already started preparing to get into the new role. And what do I mean preparing? Preparing by understanding the company's business, preparing most importantly by reading. There's always a book I like to read called The First 90 Days. And the premise of that book is really you only have about 90 days to really establish credibility and prove yourself. So yeah, very important book. I'll recommend that you read that. I still read that book whenever I'm taking on a new contract because it really speaks a lot. It provides a lot of information on the strategies you can use to ensure that you're establishing yourself within those first 90 days. And I'm going to be sharing some of those nuggets with you. So let's get going. So first thing you need to know is your role within a company affects other people. You're not working in isolation. You're not working on a project or in a certain operation just for yourself or your performance. You're actually affecting other people, being your peers, your boss, the business of the company. And I find it's always helpful when you kind of approach it with that mind frame that every single thing I'm doing is tying into a bigger picture, into a bigger strategic goal of the company. And of course, even your boss, because trust me, I've had people work on my projects or report to me functionally, and you're not even going to imagine the stress you could be under if you have a team member who's underperforming. At times when you're in that position, you're in the position of maybe a resource or an employee that's not performing properly, at times it seems like it's happening in isolation. But it's not. Trust me, there are other people under pressure because of your performance. So try to kind of get outside of yourself, get outside of your head, and think, how can I make things better? How can I align better with maybe the company's vision, the project vision, the business unit vision, and even align, most importantly, with what my boss's expectations are of me. And that's the first step to charting your way to success. I personally, when I take on a new project or a new program within the new company, at least the first 30 days, there's going to be ramp up period. You're trying to learn about the project, you're trying to align with people, know who is who. But within the first 30 days, I will have a conversation with my boss proactively, book a meeting, and just, check in to see how am I doing? Is there, any areas you think I could work on better, or any recommendations for me? Because I'm fully invested in the success of this project. Chances are, if you do that, and I'm speaking from a project perspective because I've worked in that space, chances are if you do that, you're gonna get some positive feedback or direction. Chances are you're not gonna get anything like overly negative because you're still new. But what you're doing is you're starting to put it in their head that, you know what, I'm here to make things happen. I'm here to align. I'm here to ensure that, things are successful, and I'm here to work with you. I'm a team player. And once you do that, you find that you're building a very positive relationship with your boss. You're not waiting till when things start to go south before you're having conversations. You've opened up that gateway to continuous feedback. So before things get to the situation where it's an uncomfortable conversation between yourself and your boss, you find that continuous feedback is going to help you because you've shown that you're open to constructive feedback, you're open to helping, and you're not closed up. So that's a tip to consider. Think about the big picture. Another tip is understand what your break-even point is. Break-even meaning you have to have some sort of equilibrium, right? I've taken, now I want to give, and those efforts are kind of at equilibrium. So logically, the first couple of weeks, you are the one kind of consuming, right? You're the one learning about the company, learning about the project, learning about the operations. So you're taking, right? And everyone basically usually is invested in ensuring that you have the information you need to ramp up. If you don't have that information, my recommendation is that you push to get as much information as you can to help you during that period, because there's going to come a time when you have to give back. And that's when the expectation, starts to build. Again, I've worked on really large projects in big companies, and I work as an independent consultant primarily. What I try to tell myself is I don't even have 90 days. I think the 90-day rule of when you establish credibility might work for someone who's full-time. If you're an independent consultant, you could get caught like the next day. They could wake up and say, hey, we don't have any money to fund the project, or we don't like you. They're not going to tell you we don't like you, but you get the gist. Yes, they can cut your contract without too much explanation, right? So I give myself about a month to establish, to reach that break-even point, then start to give back. So understand what your break-even point is. And the only way you can do that is to plan ahead, right? Have a small schedule. It could be a note that you write, like what your goals are, what you want to accomplish. For example, within the first month, these are the things that I need to know in order to be successful. If you find that there are any gaps there, then that's the time you need to ask people questions, because there's going to come a time that it's not that you're not going to ask questions, but sometimes the expectation might be you should not be asking some certain questions. So as much as possible, understand, what are the things I need to be successful? What do I need within this? Let's take, for example, 30 days. What do I need to know? Write it down, put timelines on it. If you're using a spreadsheet, just have like different columns with what your expectation is, the time frame, and maybe another column for status, right? Just to check it off. Either it's done, it's closed, or it's still open. That way you can reasonably track where you are. And maybe some commentary too, another column with commentary with maybe outstanding information that you don't have. Track it. I think what I'm saying is tracking. If you track it, chances are you will hold yourself accountable. So track that, understand the information you need within those 30 days, then start to build a plan of how you'll start to give back. A project, operations, who are the people you need to connect with? How do I give back? Do I know what the expectation of my stakeholders are? How do I align with it? That's really, all the give back starts to build up there. What are the expectations of my job? How do I go above and beyond once I reach that break? Once I start to build, to that break even point where, I have the equilibrium, is I've consumed all this information. Now I'm going to start giving back. So understand that. And how do you understand that again? Track it. Another goal in your first 90 days is, and I'm going to take some quotes from the First 90 Days book by Michael Watkins. Another goal within the first 90 days is to create virtuous cycles and stay away from vicious cycles. And what do I mean by vicious cycles? For example, poor decision making. Poor decision making would lead to loss of credibility. Loss of credibility leads to reduced trust. Reduced trust leads to reduced access to information. And that could very well be the start of a fallout or a downward spiral in your role. On the other side, creating virtuous cycles or circles is encouraged. And what do virtual circles or cycles do is they form reasonable and positive alliances. You align with the right people. So similar to the vicious cycle, the virtuous cycle is different in that good decision making would lead to good credibility. Good credibility will lead to access to information, and of course access to information and access to the right people of course will start to build your profile. It starts to establish you within the organization. You become more confident. People become more confident in you. So establish those connections early on and identify what is a vicious circle, and what is a virtuous one. I'll give some examples of some pitfalls. One being you're sticking to what you know and not exposing yourself or opening your mind to learning new ways to do things. That very well is like career suicide. You're coming from one company and you're insisting that things have to be done in a certain way because it was done like that in your previous company. No, you can't do that. The world we live in now is fast evolving, it's innovative, it's dynamic, and it's only the people that are open to change and are quick, to accept change and anticipate change that are succeeding right now. So stay away from having a closed mind and keep your mind open. Another vicious cycle is trying to take action too early. I think in the book it's called, is it Action Imperative? But basically, you're trying to take action without having enough context. Relax. You're gonna get to the expert stage, but it takes being strategic and knowing what information is going to be useful to you. So stay away from making quick decisions until you have enough context. Okay. Another vicious cycle is setting unrealistic expectations. Earlier I talked about creating a plan, and that's where a plan or some sort of tracking comes in, because you can reasonably, see what you can accomplish within different time frames, and also recalibrate if you find that things are, dragging, or you need to rejig your plan to align with the first 30 days or the first 90 days. This is not suggesting that you drag out your plan because you find that information is not readily available. It means with tracking, you know how to realign or re-strategize in order to get, to align with the plan that you've created to quickly ramp up. So set realistic expectations, and I think 30 days or 90 days is quite realistic to hit. Try to hit it. Try to understand what are the things that you need to succeed. I'll leave you with this last two pitfalls. One being, you're trying to do too much, or you're coming in with all the answers. I know everything. Everybody else doesn't know anything. I have all the answers. So every time I'm in a meeting, I'm always going to speak, even though I don't have any context, or reply to every email. If you know I don't have any context, you need to stop. You need to slow down. You need to read the room at times. You need to seek to understand before you're understood. Silence in some instances is not a bad thing. It might be expected when you're newer, so use that silence to absorb as much as you can, assimilate as much as you can, prepare your strategy, because when it's time to start speaking, you'll have a lot more information to put out there. With that being said, I hope you've learned one or two things. Don't forget to hit the like button, follow this YouTube page, and hit the notification button to get notifications when I do share new videos. Again, it's Anna Ladipo signing out. Have a good rest of the day. Bye.